Hi, Henry.
Hi.
How are you doing this Wednesday, I think it is?
Yes, I am well. I just ran a 10K.
What?
So I'm a little tired. But
like when? When did you run this?
Like an hour before recording. Right.
Oh my
So today?
gosh.
Yeah, so. Yeah, I was just like scarfing down some protein before we hit record, so.
Oh my gosh. Wow, you
Yes.
better than me. I would
my
be
gosh.
crashing.
Yeah, my energy levels are kind of coming down. But that's also kind of how I feel right now anyway, so.
Yeah.
Yeah.
How does it feel to be able to now be running 10Ks?
Pretty good. So yeah, this is the best shape I've been in a really long time.
Amen.
Physically, and so that's exciting. I will be doing my birthday photo shoot, my annual birthday photo shoot tomorrow. So, yeah, that's how I'm trying to lay out some pieces behind me here and trying to figure out styling.
Oh my gosh. Do you have any special birthday plans since that's next Monday, Labor Day?
Yes. I am really not celebrating my birthday this year.
Okay.
So, which I'm looking forward to. I'm like, people are like, what are you doing? I'm like, one, whatever I want to do, which is currently nothing. So I might like invite people to go get wine next Wednesday or something at my favorite wine bar. But other than that, like, I am over it. I'm just tired. It's like, it's been hot all summer. Everything's expensive. So it's just like, just come see me and hang out. And yeah, so.
Oh my gosh. By the time this episode comes out, everyone, Henry will have already had his birthday. So
yeah,
please
I'll
be
be
sure
34.
to wish him a belated birthday. 34.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it. Same birthday as Beyonce, so.
Same birthday. It's one of the things that helps me remember.
Yes, exactly.
And Beyonce's birthday.
Yes. That is very, very true.
Oh my gosh. Well, I mean, I love that both of us were doing exercises right before recording.
Yes.
I did leg day.
We're active gays. Is that what we're calling it? That's right.
Yeah, I'm impressed that I got a leg day in 45 minutes.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Before we recorded. I was
there
like,
you go.
I don't know how this is going to happen, but I have to make it happen. And so I did it.
And you did it. There you go, girl.
There we go.
Yeah.
Well, we are here continuing the Reclaiming series theme.
What episode is this for the season?
Oh, gosh. Let me look. This one.
Is this 11?
It's like 10 or 11, something like that.
Because I think Becca and I were I saw it came out the other day too. I didn't even see it. And then I opened up the podcast thing. And I was like, oh, it came out 5 days ago.
This is 11.
So, yeah. So I need to share that.
Mm-hmm. That was great. Y'all did perfect.
I want to listen to that again because I think there's some clips I want to pull from that and share on social media.
I mean, I definitely chimed in once, but there was many other times I wanted to chime in.
Oh, yeah. That was good. That was fun. Oh, my gosh. For a minute, I just thought you were in my living room because, my photo frames just like... So I literally was like, is Josh sitting in my living room? I just looked at that for a second. And I was like, oh, this looks just like the frames in my living room. So, okay.
Yes. Oh, that's right. Because the frames, for everyone listening, I'm sitting on my couch and I have a bunch of frames on my back.
And my couch looks just like that. Or my back wall looks like that. If I was
inspired by you, Henry. Not even.
I received that. that.
Yeah. Today we're talking about grace and truth.
Yeah, grace and truth.
It's an interesting one to talk about in Reclaiming.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. What are your first thoughts when someone brings up that phrasing, grace and truth? Like, what comes to your mind or heart or body?
I think first thoughts is a lot of people don't know how to speak truth and grace, specifically to our community.
Yep.
And then a lot of our community doesn't know how to receive truth.
Yeah.
And I was actually thinking about that this morning about just I might not be the person to talk to about this. But
I was wondering the same thing when I was thinking about this episode coming up today.
Sometimes, I'm just like, some people want to be coddled too much and shielded from truth. And even if it's said gracefully, they can be on the defense. Mm-hmm. Sometimes, so I think we've ran into that in Side B spaces before. So I'm always someone that, even though this podcast, yes, our audience is Side B, I don't want people who are listening to think that we are not aware of anything going on internally or within our own spaces, or we can't critique our own spaces lovingly and gracefully and truthfully, which is what my aim is in anything I talk about in regard to side B, just in regard to the Christian walk, just to be truthful and be full of grace and gentleness and be lenient where we can and firm where we must. And that's not always received well. And like historically, it has not been given well to us. So I also understand that too. So
yeah.
What are your first thoughts?
Gosh. Yeah, very similar. I was thinking about it on the way back from the gym of like what happened, what comes to mind with grace and truth. I think similarly, I was thinking about how sometimes with especially straight people, I feel like that's especially where like conservative, traditional believing straight people, where like they get this relief when you first clarify your views before you talk to them about grace. And I'm like, why did that help you so much? Like, and then on the same side, on the opposite side, exactly you said, was like, there can be this similar thing on the opposite side of being afraid of truth. And it's like, they feel more comfortable. People feeling more comfortable in one, the other one makes them anxious. And so they have to feel very comfortable so that they can venture out into the other space. What were you going to say?
I was going to say sometimes they get that sense of relief because now we're the good gays in their head when we clarify things. And so it's like, oh, well, if they're the good gays, then I can even feel more freedom to speak how I really feel about this topic. And so I think they get the relief because they feel like we're giving them permission to go in on something. So,
yeah. I feel like many times, this is something that I've had a conversation with someone before about what it means to like hold our truth, like hold truth for ourselves, is that I feel like for a lot of people, in order to venture out with people that are different than them, and I would say goes on both sides of what we're talking about, for queer people, for conservatives, all of these spaces. There's this need that we have in order to hold what we believe, that we need to be around other people like ourselves. And I do believe that's important, but like that doesn't really internalize actually what you believe. Like if you need everyone else around you to believe what you believe in order to internalize it, how much are you actually holding to it?
I mean, and I see that a lot in side B spaces.
Exactly.
Yeah. Like, yes, like whenever people leave our community and other people get so upset and this and that, I was like, okay, what, like, were you depending on them for you to hold on to what you believe? And that always bothers me. That always really bothers me.
Exactly. And it's like, what does it look like for us to internalize our belief? Yes, it's important to have people around you that like believe the same as you, that you have community with like-minded people. Like you need that. Yeah. But you can't be around that all the time.
No. I don't think that's super healthy. That's an echo chamber.
Yeah. And so I think that many times for me, I feel like in the past, I've always seen truth and grace as being a little bit of a power trip for some people of like, how can I use this over other people?
Yes. Like weaponized. Yeah.
Yeah. Like I'm going to go to the lowly other people and have grace on them because, and there is an aspect of if you hold to a truth, something that you believe true, you do believe the other person is wrong. And you have like this grace in that tension, in that space. But when it becomes like I'm above you kind of aspect, I think that's when it becomes this power aspect that I feel like happens a lot in the church. I'll get into where I feel like what reclaiming that looks like, but that's kind of what first comes up for me.
And I was actually thinking about this the other day what day was it? I was taking a shower and I started thinking about like, what is the problem with evangelicals and how we're viewed from the outside, even from either other believers or non-believers. It's like what you just said. If you believe something is true, then inherently you have to believe something else is wrong.
Yeah.
And I think which it's a fact. If you believe something's true, you believe something's wrong. And I think where evangelicals have gone wrong or taken that is that, and where that view is damaging and limiting, or that limited binary is damaging, is because then everybody else becomes your enemy. Like, if you believe that something is wrong, what you believe is true, and then something can be wrong if you believe something is true. But when you now believe that these people who believe this different thing from me are enemy, wrong, and then you don't see them as people anymore. You see them as opposition.
Yeah. Exactly. And on the other side, I, before my current counselor, I had another counselor who loved her. She was great. She was exactly what I needed in the moment. I was processing like conversion therapy, trauma, and all of that stuff. And she was really helpful in that. She was gay herself, not Christian. And so
I remember her. Yeah.
Yeah.
Told about. Yeah.
I really loved her. My one thing that I would always get on her about, though, is she would talk about like, that's your truth. And I'm like, let's sit here.
Yes.
Because many times she would use it in the place of my identity. And I'm like, that's just the truth. I'm gay.
Yeah.
Like, as you said, there's this aspect of, we can always take this to extremes of, if I hold so much of it, truth means that one person is right and one person is wrong. That can put us into like power dynamic of seeing everyone else as your enemy, or like a dichotomy. And then there's the other aspect of where we live in this space of kind of, well, truth doesn't mean that other people are wrong. And it's like, but it does. It still does.
It's just your truth, Josh. And I'm just like, sometimes I roll my eyes when people say that. I'm just like, what do you mean by that? Like,
yeah. Because even if you're talking about my identity as being gay, I'm like, it's just, I'm gay.
Yeah. It's like, because how many different truths can there be? I mean, yes, multiple things can be true at the same time, but at some point in time, there has to be like, okay, this is objectively true, and this could, like, it's not changing, and this is subjectively true to you.
Yeah.
That's an interesting nuance too. So
yeah, and I feel like a lot of that, from what I've sensed of people who use that language, it many times comes as a reaction from what you're talking about. Like, they've been in spaces where truth has been used to see other people as an enemy. They don't want that. And so you go to this other space of, well, there are multiple truths. And I think it's kind of that hard space that we many times exist in, of being able to live around people that disagree with us and being like, you're not my enemy, but one of us is wrong.
Yes. and that's where even the conversation with side A and side B gets really interesting, because I know that's a conversation that people don't like to have in this space, but not the direction I even want to take this conversation at all. But that's an example that comes to mind when I think of that.
But it is really sad sometimes how much this is built into who we are as a culture, because I'm going into like spiritual direction kind of stuff a lot more now, and I'm really loving it. But it's always interesting when I make gay friends that are not even Christian, and they ask, what do you do? And I'm like, what way will I take this? Like, what avenue am I going to take? How much do I want to let this person in? And so I told one person, I was like, well, I'm basically working faith conversations, like spiritual director. And they were like, well, I'm not religious. I don't know if that makes a difference of us being friends. And I was like, I don't care.
It honestly probably makes it easier sometimes for me. Like, to be honest, it makes it easier being friends.
It really does. But yeah, there's just such this aspect with phrases like grace and truth. And that hit it honestly, and sometimes hits the same way as that phrase, love the sinner, hate the sin. And have you noticed? Go ahead.
It can be very weaponized in the same way.
Exactly. Because have you noticed that these phrases, grace and truth, and love the sinner, hate the sin, are never used in any conversation beyond LGBT?
Yes. It's like, speak the truth in love and do this, which is yes, but it's like, why are you not speaking grace and truth to straight people?
Exactly.
Why are you not loving the sinner, hating sin to straight people? It's like, It's almost like it's like a dog whistle for like,
yeah.
Okay, well, we know what we're all really talking about here.
I mean, it's the irony. I'm not, just the amount that phrase is connected to the LGBTQ conversation, I think is shown even by the fact that like it's the center's like study thing, truth, grace, truth, or whatever. Like, do you remember that?
Oh, the Center for Faith and Sexuality?
Yeah. I'm not, listen, Greg.
Yeah,
Coles,
hey Preston, hey Greg.
Hi Preston.
Yeah.
I'm not putting on that. All I'm saying with that is that how tightly knit that. Maybe I'll take this out. How tightly knit that.
No, I think that's a valid statement in terms of like, yes, even the grace and truth and love is attached to this conversation so much that the Center for Faith and Sexuality even has that as a tagline.
Which is a great marketing aspect, I'm just saying. Because you know that's what people are going to look for. But I think that, it's just interesting how much phrases like this can automatically go, oh, I know exactly what conversation we're sitting in. I know exactly where we're going with this. I also know exactly what your thoughts are on it.
Like, I'm just like, well, thanks for just saving me a lot of time because I know exactly what you mean by this.
Yes.
But yeah, so how do we reclaim that narrative?
Oh, gosh. I mean, I think this is one of the reasons why I think I was the one who proposed we do this episode. And it's because I'm always impacted by phrases like this that are can be very triggering, activating, whatever you want to call it, complicated. But still, when you get into the scripture of it, have truth to them. That's why we're going to be doing an episode on transformation, sanctification, similar thing. Like these are conversations that can feel very uncomfortable for us because of how they've been used, but they're real. And I feel like for me, a lot of all of this comes back to what we were talking about. What does it mean to internalize the truth and be able to hold that in space around others who don't? I think that is where I see the crux of this, which is what we're all called to do. Yeah. Go ahead.
No, I was going to say that's good. It's like, how can we hold that hand in hand with others and live alongside them with love? Yeah. And gentleness and kindness and the fruits of the Spirit to those who maybe hold it in different ways than we do.
Yeah. I think that one of the ways that I found it to be very powerful to avoid kind of how it's become very misused in the evangelical church is because there's this aspect of we've seen ourselves as we are the saviors going out to do it. And in some ways, yes, we have a truth.
Yeah, y'all can't see how hard I just rolled my eyes at that because, yes, Lord, evangelicals and that.
Yeah, we see all people who don't agree with us as like children, and I'm like the kindergarten teacher coming to you to kind of like be among you until you get it right. And there is an aspect of I want to share the gospel with people, but I think where it has been able to humble me is that when I'm engaging with, let's say, non-Christians, like let's just flat out put it there, like, which is a lot. I can hold to the fact of the truth of my faith, even in the midst of that. At the same time that I'm also realizing I can learn things from these beautiful people. And I feel like that's where it gets lost, is that we feel like we have nothing to learn.
Yes. Which is such an arrogant view.
Right? Yes.
It's like, I am recently adding someone into my life, which I will talk to you about offline. But the faith conversation came up. Yeah, girl, I have a lot to fill you in on. And so, and so he was raised Catholic. I'm trying to decide how much of this is even, anyways. But so I was like, I made a joke about, I'm a church girl. And he was like, I was like, no, really, I'm the girl who's like at church most Sundays and this and that. And he's a gay guy. And he was like, oh, okay. And then so he was like, do you think you have solutions for everybody? I was like, no, but because I'm so comfortable in what I believe is true, that I find it just so much more helpful to literally like find common ground in things that I agree with that they say. And it's like, hey, religion's problematic. 1,000%. I agree with you. Hey, evangelicals are problematic. Let's talk about it even more, baby, because we have a lot more in belief similar to that topic than we do differences. And so, because yes, I do have something to learn from people who either object to how I live my life or have different thoughts about it. Because you know what? They're not like 100% wrong. And if I was walking into conversations and relationships with people thinking that I'm the one that has something to offer them and they have nothing to offer me, why would anybody want to be in a relationship with me? It's like, oh, Henry, you're just this person's overlord that like has every single answer for me and I have nothing to give back. That's not a relationship. It's not a equal one in terms of like being open and willing to hear the other person. It's more of like, okay, I'm going to appease you, but I'm not going to actually take anything you have to say seriously because I'm so convinced that I'm right about everything that you have nothing to offer me. And there's just an arrogance to that I do see Christians employ that I just can't handle. But yeah.
Exactly. I mean, and honestly, kind of going back to talking about the side B space, I think that this is a huge thing that many times happens is people come into the side B space thinking that we're going to have all of the answers, that it's going to be this healthy, perfect place where I just need this space in order to grow. And you learn very quickly that is not the case.
Yeah.
And I think that we can often get disillusioned when we realize that there's other spaces that we disagree with that, hey, actually have beneficial things to bring. Or just the idea that people different than me can teach me something. And also, I am not living this out perfectly. Like, I am so in need of learning rather than just simply pretending I have everything together in order to be the savior for everyone else.
Yep.
I think, honestly, accepting what a mess my life is has been one of the most beneficial things in my life.
Ooh, say that again, because, mess.
Yes.
Okay.
I mean, seriously, and that it's okay.
Yeah.
It's okay that it is a mess. And that,
Art and I were talking, I was talking in the Revoice staff chat last week about when we were just saying about it's okay that it's a mess, but like why sometimes this can be tiring for us side B people, because this concept of spiritual perfectionism where we feel like our faith has to be perfect, our side B experience has to be perfect because straight people are the church looking at us to be this, and then other people who come in side B space think that Josh Proctor's going to be this way, Henry's going to be this way, and then like, trying to be those people get tiring. It's like, no, like my life is not spiritually perfect and it's not healthy to aspire to that, and I have things to learn from other people and other people have things to learn and offer me as well. But yeah, letting go of that concept of like spiritual perfectionism or trying to let go of that is healthy.
It's so important. And honestly, I think this takes another way of reclaiming truth and grace, which is taking it into ourselves, of grace for ourselves, of holding to the truth of, like, I can hold to the truth of how I believe I'm meant to live and also hold to the grace that I am going to go down that road imperfect. Like, I'm on the road towards it.
Yes.
You know?
That's... I feel like, that is exactly where I'm at right now. Like, I can hold on to the truth of, like, side B and side B theology. This is probably way too much information given listeners about my life. But yeah, currently that headspace, I've found myself there. It's like, okay, I am holding on to this truth and what I believe is the truth theologically for me in my life. And also the grace that, like, hey, even though I believe this, there's times where this doesn't look even pretty or nice, and it's confusing, and it's annoying, and it's frustrating. And there's grace for that. And there's room for that. And so, that's a good point you made about reclaiming that for ourselves.
Well, because it's kind of like if you look at all of the virtues of Christianity, love, hope, faith, all of these things, we never have them as this idea of like, oh, I'm now being loving and I have met there, like we do with sexuality. Like with celibacy, we have this idea of like, oh, you're not having sex, so now you're celibate. Now you've arrived. You're done. You've made it. With love, for instance, like, I'll be honest, I'm working through some anger issues currently. It is coming out in really major ways. And like being able to work through that and work on love,
Mm-hmm.
especially with people, it's not like one thing you go toward. It's like I am on a journey in life to continue being more loving, to continue
Mm-hmm.
being in all of this stuff. And having grace with myself to keep going
As
into
you're
that
on the
journey
journey.
as
Mm-hmm.
I'm on the journey, that I'm never going to perfectly arrive, but I'm
Mm-hmm.
also moving towards that. And it doesn't change the fact of where I'm at now in how I love and where I'm at with anger, um, does not change the fact of what I actually believe where I'm meant to go.
Mm-hmm.
And
Love that.
I like how my pastor shared with me one time a new way of looking at the Good Samaritan,
Mm-hmm.
of the Samaritan, or the man on the side of the road, the Levite, the priest, who all pass by him, and
Mm-hmm.
even the Samaritan, all being ourselves,
Mm-hmm.
of like looking at, I am the one on the side of the road,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm actually passing by myself because of
Mm-hmm.
that aspect, but being able to have the grace to actually care for in that space.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, like being able to let go of the perfectionism, but that doesn't mean you're letting go of truth.
Mm-hmm. Love that. Ooh, that is so timely for my life right now. So timely. Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And I think
Um,
like not only holding on to the truth of how we're supposed to act, but being able to hold onto the truth of like, you are beloved,
mm-hmm.
you are loved, that you, God desires relationship with you, and that it's not based on you.
Mm-hmm.
Because yeah, being in this work, girl, it's it's so easy to make it works based.
Yeah, absolutely. And especially when from the outside, that's what it seems that people want from you.
Yeah.
To be work-based, to be polished, to be this. Yeah.
I'm so done with being polished.
Yeah.
I'm so.
Because I'm like, it's tiring. And it's just like, I don't have the energy for that. And it's like, where can I. Jesus. This dog.
Bishop.
So needy. Lord. All you're going to do is just to come sit here and lay down. Literally.
She
Okay.
is one of the cutest dogs ever.
She is.
Just saying.
But, yeah, the letting go of that, there's a beauty in letting go, and like, which is just part of reclaiming everything. So it's like, let me let these things go that don't serve that me spiritually, that don't grow me, that don't nourish me, and reclaim them in ways that do.
Yeah. And being able to ask questions to people who have an issue when you let go of that, of like, why is it so important to you?
Mm-hmm.
Like, why is my perfectionism so important, and the cleanliness of how it all looks so important for your own walk?
I was having a conversation with a Christian friend of mine the other day, straight person, and I mentioned that somebody has recently told me that they have a crush on me. And this first person's question back to me was, "Are you still side B?" And I was like,
"Oh my god!"
I was like, "Why is like not how do I feel about what the person said to me? Do I have a crush on them back?" I was like, "Why is like the idea of my spiritual wholeness or wellness or perfectionness the first question that was asked versus just a general any other question that conversation could have gone?" And so. Yeah.
It's really, it just makes it a lot. It takes away some of the beauty, I think, of how God works in our lives. Because I think that there was, not that there isn't beauty now, but like there was such a beauty of, I feel like, of my faith when I was first a Christian, not working in ministry, and just I already understood that I my entire faith was built on Jesus, nothing on me, nothing on anything I was doing. And just all of my desire to grow was not about expectations from other people, because no one really expected me to do much. It was built on a love for Jesus and just a belief that Jesus was calling me into something that was better for myself. You know? And I think that even with side B, I've had to sit in that of like, as I let go of that perfectionism, the expectations, the what people think or want from me, and going, how can I live into the gratitude of to Jesus of what he did, and also the belief that how Jesus calls me to pursue my life is for my betterment.
Yes. Like specifically.
Yeah. And that is where I want to go, is like in that hope, in that gratitude, and like move and breathe in that. And I feel like that's just, it lets go of so much weight.
Say la, yes. Because I mean, especially weight that wasn't yours to carry.
Yeah.
To begin
or
with.
yours to carry.
Yeah.
We are in a similar place.
Yes. Yes. And it's okay. And it's okay if people don't understand the letting go process. And it's because I think at some point in time when you're willing to walk in grace for yourself, and reclaim that, you have to step also. It calls you to step into a place of even being accepting and being willing to be misunderstood even more.
Yeah. And going back to this whole thing of truth and grace with other people, I think when we can have that grace for ourselves is when then I can totally understand having that grace for other people.
Yes, absolutely.
Because I think many times the lack of grace for other people is coming from we have no grace for
ourselves. Absolutely. Because we're holding ourselves to some of these things that we're like, well, if I'm holding myself to this and I don't give myself grace, why am I going to give that person grace to not let go of something for them? There's expectations or whatever, this ideal. So it's like,
it's so sad.
When I've learned to offer grace to myself, I'm just like, it helps me see other people, I think, through just loving eyes and kinder eyes. Instead of this need to be super rigid and just lacking compassion and grace. When I extend compassion and grace to myself, it allows me to extend to other people because I get it. Because I'm like, man, there were times and seasons where I really needed grace, and like I finally had to offer it to myself because nobody was. And so like just seeing how, I think when you extend grace to yourself too, you find the freedom to receive the truth from the Lord even better in new ways. And I'm just like, oh. Or to like even receive the truth anew and let it permeate your heart anew because you extended grace to yourself for times where you didn't live up to truth or you failed at whatever it is. And you don't really fail. Again, you can't see me, but I did that in quotation marks. But for someone who was so happy that we're not recording anymore, I always have visual elements.
You always assume that they can see.
Yes, they can see me. And so that's so funny. But yeah, it allows me to really extend grace to other people and understand that like the Lord has all of us on different journeys. And we're all doing our best to walk faithfully towards Jesus. And like you said earlier, it's not this perfect linear road. It's going to be a journey that has heartbreaks, setbacks. Like we might be going the same place, but Josh's directions might look differently than Henry's directions because of where the Lord has us in our lives and what we're going through. And it's like, okay, I might not understand that, but I have to trust at some point that Josh is walking with the Holy Spirit. And so even if something doesn't look correct to me or doesn't seem like something I would do, I'm like, okay, if this person's walking in the Holy Spirit, then like, and is that the truth? Is yes, if we believe that we have the Holy Spirit within us, and it's like, okay, let me extend grace to what my thoughts are about this specific thing or situation and see where it goes. And then if it ends up being something we have to circle back to and be like, hey, Josh, like actually this, or Henry, actually this, then that's fair. And I think that's part of reclaiming that is like being willing to let people walk in the grace that's offered to them instead of telling them how to walk in grace. Yeah.
And I think leading with curiosity of like when I see someone in that, not assuming I know why they're doing it, like what's going on with them. I think even with myself of like when I see myself going in a way or doing something that I'm like, what am I doing? Like, what's happening? I think one of the most helpful things I've ever been able to do is, and a first extension of that grace has been curiosity, not even not even assuming why I'm doing what I'm doing, but being able to then initiate, I think, with that curiosity. Because I mean, honestly, one of the biggest things that has been so helpful in my grace for other people, since I've already talked about it on this podcast, it's just like when I had the affair as a ministry leader, I think that for anyone who has not heard that, because I know we have people jumping in all of that, I think I did an episode with Paulo at some point.
Oh yes, that one was it. Yeah,
go back there and you'll hear all of that in more detail. I feel like in many ways in my mind, I had hit like the word, like, you know, like the thing that, like, you know, the stereotypical thing that ministry leaders do, you know, and felt very disqualified as a ministry leader. In many ways, yes, I was. But it was also really helpful when some people came to me and reminded me, like, the qualifications of being a ministry leader have nothing to do with you. Like, sure, there are ways of, like, maybe you need to step back in order to take care of yourself, or like these kinds of things. But like, it's not about, like, being a ministry leader is not built on your perfection. And then I think in that, being able to know that like, hey, I'm in this not because of anything with me. I am literally in it, but like really believing that. I mean, many times we say it, but I think when you've been through enough crap like we have, you really understand that. And then it allows for that curiosity with other people of like, yeah, what's leading them here? Why is this going on? People do things for reasons.
Yes, and curiosity. I was talking to an Episcopal priest this morning at a meeting, which I also got to tell you about offline. Yeah. But
okay, I
feel like we need to hurry up and let's wrap this podcast up, because we are both talking around so many things that we need to talk around directly. But and so we're talking about, hey, because he's church planting, and he was like, you know what? I want curious people, because curiosity is a great place to meet people and have dialogue and conversations with them. And like in ministry, curiosity is what's often helpful in like shepherding other people. It's like, hey, why are you doing that? Or what's going on here? Instead of just a rush to giving an answer or this or that or condemning. Yeah.
It's that's where I really feel the grace and truth sits.
Yeah. And curiosity
in the humility to know that we are on our journeys, the curiosity and grace of ourselves. I mean, it sits in the gospel of knowing that, like, Jesus calls us to better. Jesus calls us to the abundant life. And that is a lifelong call. Yeah. Like, you're not going to get there. And I'm really thankful for my church because I feel like my church has been very super aware of the automatic pressure that comes with my job related to perfection. Because I don't think I even realized it at first when I would have people from my church, especially my pastors, who'd be like, how are you doing with like all of that? And I'd be like, I'm fine. I'm good. I'm used to it. They're like, no, like, that's a lot. And I'm like, is it? I've carried it for so long that I just don't even notice it. Yeah. And then I think the more they've asked that, the more it has worn down that shell of like, oh yeah, it is a lot. Like it's a lot to carry. And then being able to have grace sit in that, I think is real. And it doesn't change the truth of what I hold to. And that's the key. Because like you said, so many times people will come to this going, so do you believe this anymore? I'm like, yeah. Exact same way I did before. All of it. I just have a lot more grace than I used to.
Because my lived experience and reasons I had for things at 24 look very different for things at 34. And so
exactly.
Yeah. Ooh, like, and I'm in that spot.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I just want our listeners to be able to breathe. I think that's the biggest thing. And the sad part is, depending on your church context, your family context, your local context, many times you're not given that space.
Yeah, you don't have the answer.
No.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know what I'd do to have that space if I didn't have my local church community, and that's really sad. Or my family. Because, I mean, Christian and Nathaniel definitely give that space to me.
Yeah. I thought you mentioned family of origin for a second. I was like,
God,
that's interesting.
no.
Yeah, I was like,
no.
I was like, wow. I was like, that's a recent development as of like a day.
I was like, no.
Yeah.
I mean, my parents are great.
Yeah.
But I've already talked enough about my siblings on this podcast. They do not deserve more airtime.
Okay.
Oh, one of them is great. Because actually, I need to clarify her. She listens to this podcast.
The sister.
My sister Laura is amazing.
Yes.
The others.
Yeah.
Anyway, watch my other podcast. Sorry, never mind.
I'm getting on a tangent. Them listen. But even them, we can hold them in truth and grace, girl. Okay.
Have you ever had that moment where a friend tells you, "Hey, I started listening to your podcast," and you're like, "Shit, what have I said about you?"
Yes. Oh my gosh. Remember? I mean, Paul and I can talk about it now, but like whenever I was talking about my Atlanta trip on my other podcast, and Paul listened, so like the minute I got done recording, I was like, "Oh crap." I was like, I have not had this conversation with him yet, one-on-one, and he's about to hear the whole thing on a podcast, and he did, girl. And so, yeah, now when I mention someone's name, especially if it's stories involved, I'm like, ooh, have they talked about this before with me, or would this be a shock to them if they've heard it? Because for me, once we record something, it literally is out of sight, out of mind for me. I just kind of forget I even said something, put it out there.
Oh,
it's like, oh yeah.
Yeah. No, I had a few of my
So hey, Paul.
Hey, Paul. We love you.
Yes.
And I mean, great shout out to Paul. But no, I've had some of my non-Christian gay friends, like, because they know that like being side B is such a big part of my life. I'll be having dinner and they'll be like, "Yeah, I've listened to your podcast." And I'm like, "Oh,
that's always a shock."
Oh God. And I was like, I mean, I've talked about many of my non-Christian gay friends and different things, especially when we have these conversations about how do you relate to other gay people. And I'm like, I mean, I know I've always talked respectfully, but like, I just am really nervous.
I'm like, great. If you have any thoughts, I'd love to hear them. Other than that, like, okay, let's keep going.
I'll be like, please have grace.
Yes, exactly. Please have grace.
Please have grace to anything you hear.
Yeah.
That's honestly one of the scariest things in my life. Anyway, yeah. Any other thoughts that you have here?
No, I think we covered that.
Yeah. I hope this is helpful for you all. Like, I would love for us to get to a place where these phrases that, I mean, honestly, it's kind of like the word queer, like reclaiming these things that have been used against us and being like, no, we're going to use this in another way. It doesn't mean we have to start using grace and truth, but being able to, when you hear it, know that they're using it in this way.
Yeah.
But here's actually because I think that many times what we do is we go, well, this is in the Bible and this is how people are using it. So does that mean the Bible's using it in this way? Yeah. And I'm like, no, that is not what Scripture's saying.
I think like understanding that like there's nuance to it and it's complicated. And holding both those things are it has to be, I don't think there's a one size fits all. It has to be almost case by case, which gives us the freedom, right, to move within those boundaries that the Lord has given us as is beneficial for this situation. So,
yeah. Cool. Well, everyone, I hope that this is helpful for you and would love to hear your thoughts on it.
Yeah.
Now Henry and I are going to go have another chat.
Okay. Y'all probably want to tune into that one. Y'all wish we were recording that one.
Oh my gosh. The amount of times that Henry and I have recorded something and been like, we can't post
We cannot post that. Like, that can never air. So maybe like 10 years from now when like we're so past those situations and we're like, hey, let's just release all of those. That would be funny.
That would be hilarious. Oh gosh. All right, everyone. Have a good afternoon. Wish Henry a belated birthday. And we can't wait to see the photo shoot pictures.
Yes, you know they're going to be iconic as usual.
Yes. All right, bye everyone.
Bye y'all.
All right, well tell me about the